Richard Sandrak, Guiliano Stroe, Ryusei Imai, or even Andrey Kostash. Those names may ring a bell in you, and that is quite normal, because those aren't your average kids.
Richard Sandrak was famous back in the early 2000s for being kind of a toddler bodybuilder with a super ripped physique. He competed in bodybuilding shows, and this all really happened under the coercion of his father, Pavel, who really pushed him pretty hard to become this bodybuilder celebrity that he did become as a young kid.
Probably one of the first natty or not speculation videos started coming out with guys thinking it's impossible to look like this at this age.
From insanely ripped abs to unbelievable physical performance, they are performing like you've never seen. But there's a side you've never been shown. Behind those inhuman performances are normal kids with trauma, destroyed and abused lives, and lived with a constant pressure to be the best.
His father was a very tough person that would have him doing 6 or 7 hours consistently kicking a bag.
Let's uncover the untold truth behind the lives of those superhuman kids. The one thing all these kids have in common is one thing: abuse, which is why it's important to look at the parents first. Richard Sandrak's parents were heavily involved in sports, leading them to push him in that universe too.
His father, Pavel, was a martial arts expert. He began teaching Richard different techniques, and by the age of 5, Richard had mastered the art.
And just like all the other kids, would adopt a training regimen that comes close to the limits of human capacity.
You know, he made me do 2,000 push-ups, you know. And if I didn't do them, he'd go out and I'd have to do another 2,000.
Ryusei Imai, who was famous for perfectly executing Bruce Lee moves without making a single mistake, trained for at least 2 hours a day, running multiple kilometers every day in the morning before performing his push-ups and martial arts training. Or Richard, who at 5 years old, according to his trainer, would train 7 hours a day, executing roughly 600 push-ups, 300 squats, combined with other bodybuilding style training. And although the 7-hour mark is highly suspicious, there's no doubt that his father was pushing him to his upper limits, turning bodybuilding into something forced instead of enjoyable. In any case, all of them experienced what extreme training was like, and that in most cases came with extreme dieting. Richard Sandrak as an example of this.
Richard had never even had pizza, never seen it, and the father wouldn't let him have it. The father ate pizza, and what Richard ate was a bowl of lettuce.
But the fact of the matter is, young kids aren't supposed to look like this. They're not supposed to train like this, and they're not supposed to diet like this. The diet specifically, irregardless of whether or not steroids were used, is where it became borderline abusive.
A forced diet like this isn't only a terrible idea to disgust him of dieting later on, but it's also not a good idea for his development into a normal adult. Yet, training and dieting isn't the only thing behind this insanely impressive build, leading to my next point. Those physiques that you're seeing aren't exactly what you could call natural, especially one of them. At 5 years old, Richard, that you may know under the nickname of Little Hercules, looked like this. Suspicious? I thought so.
So it very likely could have been more than just protein powder, as you can see from the extremely developed physique this guy had.
Probably one of the first natty or not speculation videos started coming out with guys thinking it's impossible to look like this at this age.
His father really pushed it to the limit and took it to the extreme, and was accused many times of force-feeding his son steroids.
His father later got busted for feeding his son some form of PED, likely being Anavar, which makes you look more drier and leaner.
Where you have guys literally giving their children potentially anabolics in order to build a ridiculous physique at such a disproportionately young age.
Parents were claiming natural. They were telling my parents, my kid. So anyways, I don't know if you know, but that the guy, his dad ended up going to jail. He got busted for giving his kid steroids.
The dad was mixing in oral anabolic agents into this kid's protein shake. So he's not literally injecting him. Rather, he is literally feeding him some sort of oral anabolic agent.
And although training and dieting like this with the help of PEDs at this young age is just dangerous overall, it is far from what these kids experienced on a daily basis. Andrey Kostash, 10. Ryusei Imai, 9. Richard Sandrak, 8. Guiliano Stroe, 4. Those were the ages at which each of them started to reach enormous fame, making them appear on many famous TV shows at the time. Although their fame was short-lived, worldwide attention is something that can be very hard to handle. Simply look at famous stars who try to handle the lack of privacy or that experience mental breakdowns by being overexposed.
I mean, the pain in this world, it's just so, it's obvious. And people are looking for hope, and they're looking for a way out, and they're looking for an escape.
And those are adults, What we're talking about here are children from 4 to 10 years old, and it's quite hard to imagine them handling enormous fame on a daily basis. This usually happens since the parents are forcing them onto very low calorie diets, extremely high training volume and intensity, which is even too high for professional bodybuilders, sometimes secretly sliding some form of PD in their food or drinks, and pushing them to the outer limits of human performance, which in the end leads to those impressive bodies, early fame and exposure on stages and TV. Kids like these probably feel immense pressure to perform every single day. This lifestyle then deprives them from a child's basic needs, such as normal education, simple friendships, or even normal food.
We didn't know that Richard had no toys at home. He had no bicycle, he had no skateboard. He never was allowed to go outside. He never went to the park.
There were no toys. I would say, doesn't Richard go down the street to the park and play with his friends? Well, I found out he had no friends. The father would not allow him out of the house. It wouldn't take much to realize that there was something fishy going on.
And their whole life is dedicated to this one thing, which is training. For adults to dedicate their life to one thing in most cases was their choice, but those kids have no say in that. They have no other choice but to follow. Their parents may possess some form of perfectionism, trying to control every aspect of their kid's life. They end up trying to make every second of their days productive and optimize as much of their lives as possible. There's two extremes, with one being parents not getting involved at all, and others getting overly involved to the point of constant control. It could also be the case that a parent tries to achieve their unrealized goals through their kid, by making them live a lifestyle designed to achieve that goal later on. Perhaps a father would have loved to become a bodybuilder or athlete, but never achieved it, leading him to use his son as a vehicle for achieving his dreams of fame and success.
And as the years went on, it really became evident that this dream of becoming a bodybuilder wasn't so much Richard's dream as it was his father's dream that he pushed upon his son, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. You know, once he got to the age of 9, he wouldn't even say that he loved his father because his father was so abusive towards him and his mother.
Or it could be the case that these kids genuinely love training that much and live with such discipline, which is a possibility that we have to consider, and is probably the case for either Guiliano or Andrey, that both still post content to this day. Now, considering they probably lived a quite abusive childhood and an abusive environment with little chance of having mentally stable parents, how did they finally turn out? Well, Richard is now 31, healthier than ever, and completely stopped this whole insanity of being called the world's strongest boy. He still works out, but definitely not as much as before. He now lives quite a peaceful and normal life. Andrey and Guiliano are now 18 and 19, still work out, still own YouTube channels to this day, and keep posting about their lives. And Ryusei Imai disappeared from the internet and is apparently focusing on his studies while still training every day. Overall, it seems like none of them turned out badly, which is very good news, but this isn't the case for many others. We're not taking into account all the children being abused in this way who aren't world famous, but with parents who hope them to be. Regardless of what greatness they showed on screens or what lifestyle they portrayed, their life was hidden with lots of dark secrets which weren't shown to the public.